On today's edition of Stories from Real Life with Melvin E. Edwards, our guest today is Heath Mayo. Heath is the founder and president of Principles First, a nationwide grassroots movement of people who share a love of American democracy and concern for the direction of the country's existing conservative leadership. The Principles First annual summit is held in Washington, D.C., where speakers from across the country address a crowd of voters who are hungry for a change to the current political system. Let's meet our guest, Heath Mayo.
You are listening to Stories from Real Life, a podcast by engaging storytellers for engaged story listeners. Here's your host, author and journalist, Melvin E. Edwards.
Hello again, and welcome to today's episode of Stories from Real Life. I'm your host, Melvin E. Edwards. We are on site at the 2025 Principles First Summit in Washington, D.C. Thank you for joining me today. Our guest right now is Principles First founder, Heath Mayo. I guess that makes him the first Principles First principal. Hello, Heath. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Melvin. Thanks so much for having me on, and thanks for being here at the summit. It's great. It's been a great weekend.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun so far. But before we get into the political stuff, I first want to congratulate you on becoming a father for the first time.
Yes, thank you. I mean, we have a little girl at home, first one. She's about 2.5 months now, and Cecilia and I are really enjoying getting to be her parents and learn the ropes. But we're still learning, for sure.
You will always be Mark. You will always be back here. So how are you adjusting overall?
I'm doing well. It's the first month. She, waking up every 2 or 3 hours. But after the first month or so, I think our superpower is sort of being able to sleep through the night. She sleeps at about 12 midnight and then wakes up at 7 or 8. So we're pleased with that. That's pretty much a full night of sleep, honestly. So we're proud of that.
My first daughter didn't sleep through the night until she was 2 years old.
Oh. Well, that's what everybody tells me. I mean, we've had her, and it's been so relatively easy that we're like, okay, let's do number 2. This is great. And everybody's like,
that's how they get you.
Yeah, exactly.
You were all Ivy League selection on the Brown University baseball team, where you received your BA in political science and economics and your MA in history concurrently from Brown before going on to law school at Harvard. How did you have time to study?
Oh man, I'm one of these guys that I just like doing things. I like going and being on the move. And I was that way in high school. You know, one of these guys that sang in the school musical. I was in the choir, doing baseball, football. I mean, in East Texas, you got to play football, baseball, track. So I sort of tried my hand at everything in high school. You get good at time management that way. And yeah, I just have always enjoyed doing things with people and didn't change in college really. Obviously getting too old. haven't played baseball since college, but I miss it a lot.
Before going to Brown, you were a White House Wildcat in Texas and a 4-sport athlete. Do you think Patrick Mahomes brags that he went to the same high school as Heath Mayo?
I don't know. He's one of these guys. He knew me. My mom, I actually taught him in the 4th grade. And it was a running joke thing in White House that, Heath Mayo is going to be president someday. And Pat Mahomes would always say that. He's like, Heath Mayo, he's going to be the president someday. And I was like, no, I'm not. But I wonder sometimes today if he still thinks Heath Mayo is going to be president. And so hopefully one day he'll come to the Principles First Summit.
Yeah, if he showed up, that would be pretty impressive. But who do you think is the most impressive get you've had so far as a speaker?
I mean, Mark Cuban was a pretty big get. I just didn't know how to go about getting in touch with him and didn't know. I mean, I come living in Texas, owning the Mavs. He's a pretty big fixture in Texas, especially in the DFW area. So when he followed me on Twitter, I just DM'd him, and then he gave me his email, and it went from there. So he's very open. I mean, he's an entrepreneurial guy. I mean, you see him on Shark Tank. He believes in like the entrepreneurial spirit. So I think probably it was a little bit of that, but whatever it was, it got him here, and we were just thrilled to have him.
All right, before I ask you this question, I'm just going to assume you're planning to run for elected office. Tell us about that.
You know, I would love to do it, honestly. I'm not going to beat around the bush. Like, I would love to do elected office, namely because I think so many people in elected office are just doing it for all of the wrong reasons. And I enjoy, like, helping people, talking to people. I've loved this Principles First thing as it has grown and meeting everyone from all around the country. So, and I like talking about the issues. That's not really the calling card of being a politician these days, is talking about the nobody wants to hear about that, I guess. But right now, there's just no political party for me, honestly. I was always a conservative, went to CPAC, was a Republican, Romney voter, Rubio voter. The world has changed, obviously, a lot. I'm not a Republican today. I do not feel comfortable calling myself a Republican. But at the same token, it's... You know, maybe I become a Democrat someday. I don't know. I'm not there yet. But hopefully the Democrats start to rethink their brand and their ideas and show some openness to people like me. And if that's the case, maybe. But yeah, right now, not in the car, raising my daughter and trying to figure out where I fit.
Would you be excited if Patrick Mahomes or Mark Cuban came out and endorsed your candidacy for whatever office you might seek?
I'd take anybody's endorsement, honestly. You know, when you're running for office, I don't think you don't have the luxury of really caring and choosing. You want everybody you can get. So I'd take them all.
The head of the Proud Boys was here yesterday, railing against the Capitol Police, who were being honored and recognized and who were speakers on the stage. Were you concerned when you heard about that?
I mean, look, that was just bizarre, honestly. Enrique Tarrio, this guy convicted for 22 and then sentenced for 22 years in federal prison for seditious conspiracy. I mean, he was at the very top of the Proud Boys. He was in jail awaiting that sentence until he was pardoned by Donald Trump and basically set free. And I mean, look what has happened. Within a month of being released, he was rearrested the day before yesterday at the Capitol for physically assaulting a woman. And then today, after being rearrested, he was back out at our summit heckling police again, which is what obviously he was in for on January 6th. So look, I'm a rule of law guy. Public safety, you release criminals that broke the law, that you're going to get more crime. And that's what we see. These guys are criminals. They're not political people. They're not, here to give a political argument. They're here to cause trouble. And Michael Fanone and his family were here, his mom. They were shouting obscenities at her. They're just disgusting, honestly. I'm glad those people are protesting us instead of sitting in the front row. I mean, it's just crazy.
Well, if I had to guess, I assume that you have probably had some kind of threatening DMs or messages sent to you because of what you're doing, this type of thing that you're doing here. Have you been worried about that?
I mean, I've fortunately not had a run-in in real life with any of these people. And so I think for me, I still assess it as sort of like, these guys are cowards. It's usually an anonymous account that DMs you anonymously or sends you a mail message with no return address. And you're just like, this person is just an idiot. You're just trying to pick up dust and make me scared or something. You certainly can't take safety for granted. You always got to be vigilant. But I think a lot of these folks are just a lot of talk. This Enrique Tarrio guy, if things had come to fisticuffs, he was not going to fare well against Harry Dunn and Michael Fanone. So when it came down to the words and shouting and protesting, he got out of here pretty quickly. So I think a lot of these guys are chest beating and don't really have the guts to actually do much. I mean, obviously we saw on January 6th that in numbers they will do some serious damage. But you always got to be vigilant, and it's a shame that our politics has gotten to this point where people have to be afraid for their safety, and honestly, to the point where it's affecting people's votes in Congress. That's not democracy. That's like some fascist dictator state kind of stuff.
Yeah, from my experience, people tend to develop artificial courage from alcohol, crowds, or anonymity online.
Yeah, exactly.
The attendance at Principles First has probably grown fivefold since the first summit in 2020. How do you think Principles First is different now than it was then?
Well, it's a great question because I think it has evolved quite a bit since the first gathering in 2019. I think at that time, I think we thought about our project a little bit different. The project was different. 2019, prior to January 6th, Trump's renomination as president, certainly, I think a lot of us were still Republicans, maybe just disgruntled with the direction of the party under Trump, but we're hoping that it would wake up to its senses and realize this was not a good direction for the party or the country. Since then, I think we've seen, obviously the party renominated him after January 6th and continues to kind of go in that direction. I don't think we're holding out hope that the Republican Party is going to be snapping back to its senses anytime soon. I don't think the project is to save the Republican Party. I think the project is to save the country at this point. And so it's about new alliances, new people, new faces. We've got Mark Cuban here this weekend. We've got Jared Polis, Democratic governor of Colorado. So we're wanting to make new allies because it's about building a governing majority that's new, because clearly the Democrats aren't good at this either. They just lost to him again after he basically broke all these laws, incited an attack on the Capitol. They were, the Trump movement was still able to defeat the Democrats. So that's a sign that we need to go back to the drawing board. And so it's time to rethink those political alliances and the ideas that are on offer and really put forward a new vision for the country. And I think that's the project that we're engaged in now.
All right, you talked about developing new alliances. What are the ultimate goals for Principles First? Can it become a viable third party if that's one of your goals?
A lot of attendees have raised this with me this weekend. I think there's a hunger there for something like this. You saw No Labels kind of start to do it in this past cycle. It's a little different way of doing it. No Labels, they were able to raise a bunch of money to do it that way and maybe get one high-profile person to run president. I think we would do it a little bit differently. We're more of a movement, right? I mean, we're not like the Tea Party, but functionally we're similar in that we're just a bunch of grassroots Americans that are kind of frustrated with our government right now, and we're starting to gather at the summit and also at dinners around the country. We're going to continue to do that because, look, at the end of the day, the people still govern, and to do anything in this country, you need a critical mass of voters ultimately at the ballot box to give you their consent to go to Washington and enact change. And so that's what we've been focused on, are the people, bringing people together at the grassroots, giving them new spaces to meet each other in and talk about the challenges the country faces. That's how it starts. If it ultimately takes a new political vehicle like a party, then I think any party will organically spring up around the people. But I think it's got to start with the people first and the principles first. That's one of my it's interesting what No Labels was doing. It's one of my actually complaints about No Labels. Why I was a little skeptical is I don't know what No Label stands for, other than that, we're No Labels. We're not either of the other parties. And I think that to really be successful, you've got to tell Americans what it is you believe, what your principles are, what your policies are, and, what's your vision for the country. Thankfully, I mean, if someone is still interested in that effort, I don't think we're getting good visions for the country from either party right now. So whether it's the Democratic Party changing and adapting its vision for the country, or something new coming in and offering a better vision, it could happen. Principle First, I think, is ready to be a part of that change if it happens, and we'll try to drive it as much as we can. But there's no concrete plan at the moment for Principle First to turn into a political party or anything like that.
Okay.
What are we witnessing 1 month into Trump 2.0?
Chaos. I think chaos, incompetence, sort of a little bit of carrying through on what he said he would do. That's sort of a hallmark of Trump as a politician is, we're going to cut waste, fraud, and abuse. And so we're going to just give Elon the keys to everybody's private data, and we're going to let him do whatever he wants to do. He's going to hire a bunch of 21-year-olds to send emails out to every federal employee that are like not even properly formatted or spelled correctly. I mean, doesn't even know. It could have been a phishing scam. No one knew because it was so poorly formatted. So it's just incompetence, I think, more than anything out of the gate. Who he's putting at the tops of these agencies, people completely unfit for these roles. Fox News host Heath Mayo at the DOD, managing, such a huge and important operation, has never managed anything in his life. A few budgets to be managed for nonprofits and were horribly mismanaged. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Patrick Bell, Tulsi Gabbard, these people are not serious people. So that's certainly been a hallmark. I think the really concerning thing for me has been just the absolute 180 on American foreign policy. I mean, there's always been debates between the parties about should we spend more on defense, or are we spending enough, or which conflicts, how should we engage around the world? But it really feels like, with the statement in the Munich Security Conference by J.D. Vance, and then how Trump has, some of the recent statements about, Ukraine started this conflict, and we're going to start sitting down without Ukraine from my end. It feels like we've died, honestly, as a country, and we're now kind of carrying the water of people like Putin and Xi and, on even. And then this whole nonsense about Gaza Strip being a great real estate deal. I mean, this is just insulting. It's not serious. So I think the incompetence is really going to catch up to them. The tariffs on our allies makes no sense. This is going to drive up consumer prices. He talked all about inflation being so bad during his campaign, and one of the first things he does is something that's going to make inflation worse. So I don't know what they're doing. It's hard to see a lot of logic and rationale behind the move. And Trump's always been an erratic guy. I mean, we knew that during the campaign. We knew what we were going to get, and so in that sense, he is delivering what he promised. But I don't think it's good for the country, and I think we're in for a rude awakening these next 2 years. A lot of people think that he does some crazy thing, but it's not going to really affect us. You saw his first term. And the thing about his first term is we were still sort of on the uplift of a cyclical expansion economically. I mean, and plus they spent a lot of money. I mean, drove us down into debt. But when you're spending a lot of money like that, it does drive some economic growth. It crowds out private growth, but it does keep the economy moving. You had the huge tax cuts some of them were good. It's a mixed bag, but there were tax cuts, and that's juiced the economy. And then there was all the funding. So, you can't keep doing that. And the tariffs are going to be bad. And then the uncertainty around what he's doing in Europe, not good. And those things are going to start to have an effect. And you see that the market has not been as rosy of a response to his first couple of months as he probably hoped. I think it's been pretty muted, especially relative to the last time. I don't think it's clear that, this is going to be a big economic boom of a presidency. And it could, in fact, be pretty catastrophic if they're not careful.
What do you think goes through Marco Rubio's mind when his head hits the pillow at night?
I don't even know. I think he probably had to turn his mind off at this point. I remember campaigning for him, and I went to Miami to knock doors when he ran in 2016, and he was just completely different guy. I mean, he's a guy that really believed in sort of a strong America leading on the world stage. I mean, his parents are from Cuba, so he knows the importance of an America that talks about liberty and being a beacon of opportunity for the world. And for him to sort of be going around spouting the J.D. Vance, Donald Trump, foreign policy is just nuts. And so I know he probably has to be ashamed. He certainly knows how much he has turned, how much he has changed. And as someone who supported him and thought he should have been president of the United States, it's embarrassing for me, honestly, because I was wrong in that judgment. But it's got to be embarrassing for him as well, I think.
Well, if we're going to be doing confessions, I guess I might as well just come out and say that in 2016, he was my number one choice. Obviously, something happened and that changed. Where does America go next?
I mean, it's a big question. It's a great question. I think it's an important one that I think more Americans should be thinking about, because there's a lot of challenges that America faces. I mean, I think we sort of, through the 90s and the 2000s, 9/11 was a little bit of a wake-up call with Islamic terror and the idea that we were not, this impenetrable economic fortress. But there's no guarantee that the 21st century is going to be an American-led century. We have authoritarians on the march. Never since the end of World War II have we seen countries like Russia and Iran, regimes like China, challenging the status quo post-World War order. That's a big concern. I mean, much of the economic growth and success over the 20th century after World War II, people don't realize it was built on keeping lanes of commerce secure. The idea that countries couldn't just go invade their neighbors, that's not just it's not that we just want to protect Ukrainians, all we do. It's that we want that system that has been so immensely successful and contributory to the well-being of so many people in America, but also around the world. We want to keep that secure. And you can start to see it breaking down. So where I'd like to see America go is to recommit itself to that idea. Because look, like it or not, we do have a responsibility. We are the freest, greatest nation in the world, the strongest military. If we don't step up and lead, it's not really going to happen. We'll see what Europe does. We're going to get a test of this whole theory that Trump has, that if we just pull up our stakes and come home, we can just spend all. We don't have to worry about the rest of the world, and Europe can fend for itself. We're going to see how that works out. I think we're in for a rude awakening. So I think that's on the foreign piece. We really need to recommit ourselves to the prison. We don't have to go. Look, there were mistakes in Iraq and Afghanistan. Nobody thinks that those conflicts were handled, successfully. Nobody does. But just because we got those wrong doesn't mean that now we got to pull back and we can't help allies of freedom when they're in trouble and when they're invaded by thugs like Putin. So we really need to recommit ourselves to our values there abroad. But domestically, there's a host of challenges. I think, there is an affordability crisis. Prices are going up. People are getting squeezed at the bottom end. Everything from healthcare. Obama slowed down the rate of growth in healthcare, but it's still a screwed up industry. There's a lot of savings to be had for someone who knows how to reform that space. Mark Cuban talked about it the other day, cutting out middlemen, these pharmacy benefit managers who just take a slice of the pie, and it drives up prices. And anybody who goes to the hospital or the doctor knows this. When you get your bill back, you're like, I'm not paying it, but somebody is. So that's broken and needs to be fixed. Housing, another one. Rent continues to go up. The cost of buying a house is out of reach for a lot of Americans. And it's this one's easy. It's like, build more houses. Make it easier to build homes in new formats that can reduce the cost of rent. And Governor Polis, who spoke earlier today, has done a lot of that in Colorado. So we need to be thinking in new ways with new ideas to solve some of these challenges. I think AI is going to be another one that, I think about the challenges that AI is going to bring, and I don't even know if some of these members of Congress know what AI stands for. But look, me and my wife already use it at home, and it's coming. And I think it's going to come fast, and it's going to be disruptive. It writes a hell of a good term paper, I think the applications of this technology, we don't really even know yet. And so we're really living in a sort of a new industrial revolution, I think. The world is going to look completely different in 10 years. And I'm really concerned that we are not thinking about it proactively, and we're going to be caught flat-footed. And it's going to lead to a lot of problems. And more inequality, more frustration in different industries as they grow and adapt. And so we got to be prepared as a country to talk about and deal with these challenges, because it can create social unrest, it can create economic angst and distress and make it tough for people to pay their bills. It can put people on the street. So it's really going to affect people's lives.
Despite all the evidence we see, I still believe that Americans crave optimism. Do you have any good news that you can leave us with today?
Well, I'm glad you have optimism, Melvin. I have optimism. I'm usually an optimistic guy, but I'm clear-eyed about the challenges that we have. But what gives me hope and optimism is rooms like the one that we're in today, the Principles First Summit. Thousands of people around the country coming together on their own dime to make this happen. This still continues to be. People don't realize it because it looks so kind of professional in a hotel like this, but it's a completely volunteer effort. This comes together every year on the backs of volunteers from around the country. And it's that kind of grit and determination and, people just giving a damn about what happens to America that is going to pull us out of this mess. And I still believe in the fundamental character and decency of even the people who voted for Trump. Some of them I don't think are decent people. Like the Proud Boy guy that showed up, not a decent dude. But on the whole, I think people are decent. They want what is good for the country, and they're Americans first. And we got to connect with them again on that level if we want to pull the country back from the brink. And so I think it can happen. We're going to continue to be at this fight, go make those arguments to our neighbors, and try to bring more into the Principles First tent. So if your listeners are listening in, I'd encourage them to come to the summit and be a part of what we're doing. And it's a bunch of folks like Melvin who are just good salts of the earth folks that are here and want to see what's best for the country, however we can get there. So that's what gives me optimism.
Well, it sounds like they just let out for lunch, and it's starting to get kind of noisy in here, so let's wind it down with that thought, and that's a good way to end it today. Our guest has been Principles First founder and president Heath Mayo. Heath, thank you for joining me today. And that's it for today's episode of Stories from Real Life. Join us again next time for another chance to learn from each other. Until then, don't forget to shine your light wherever you go.
That was Stories from Real Life. Join us again next week for another great storytelling journey. See you next time.